All right. Hi, everybody. Welcome. All right. I invite you to close your eyes if that's comfortable for you. We're just going to kind of warm up a little spiritual workout style. So, what I want to touch on this evening is the concept that we refer to here as take responsibility. I often call this nobody's favorite. And yet, in many ways, it might turn into our favorite. So, part of the reason that it's not most people's favorite is because it really fundamentally changes how we move through the world and how we view things, which, of course, is what spiritual workout is all about. But when we talk about taking responsibility, it's not the kind of being responsible like showing up on time and showing up to work on time and telling your friend you'll meet her Tuesday at 10 o'clock, and then you meet her Tuesday at 10 o'clock and you pick the kids up from school on time. I mean, that's being responsible. And yet what we're talking about here is, what does it mean to be responsible to the being part of the human beings that we are, to our soul, to our higher self, to the part of us that exists beyond our physical body. So the moment that we choose to do that, we already are in that place of spiritual being, having a human experience, and looking at things from that perspective. I think another reason that this concept is not everybody's favorite is because we don't ever then get to blame anybody else ever for anything that's going on in our lives. And the reason for that is really very simple. It doesn't mean that perhaps they didn't do egregious things, and it doesn't mean that a dozen juries would convict the person of whatever crime you are charging them with. What it means is that in spite of all that, they are still in your reality. So they are a creation of yours. Now, this actually leads into another reason I think we resist this concept so much, because those of us who've been swimming in this pool for a while, if you will, really start to grab the language of, well, I guess that's, I created it, so I better do something about it. And of course, that's true. But it doesn't mean you created it on purpose, right? It doesn't mean that you are a bad person. It doesn't mean that you did anything wrong. It just means that as a spiritual being having a human experience, creating your own reality, that this thing, this crime, this attack, this disservice, this whatever it is still in your experience. And if it's in your experience, you're responsible for it. You're not to be blamed for it. There's nothing to feel guilty about. It's just in your experience. So I think that the best way out of a lot of the fog of this particular concept is to not even think about or worry about, unless you really are interested in it, the things that have transpired up until now and the things that have been quote unquote created perhaps quite unconsciously. It is what it is. So if we're practicing presence, we don't have to go into the past. We don't have to go into the future. We can just say, here is a circumstance in my reality. If it's in my reality, I'm responsible for it. Not necessarily for having created it, but I'm responsible for how I respond to it. Now, another thing so it's not about shame, it's not about guilt, it's not about having done anything wrong. Absolutely. And another place where we tend to kind of invert the meaning of this concept is, again, those of us who've been swimming in this pool for a while and are getting comfortable. Yeah, it's my responsibility, with the idea of things being our responsibility. In spite of that, oftentimes we do this sort of upside down dance where we are hyper willing to take responsibility for all kinds of things that have nothing to do with us, while we at the same time seem to just sort of ignore or pay less attention to the things, what we actually are responsible for. So if you do something to me, I'm not responsible for what you did, but I'm responsible for how I respond to it. Parents often get messed up here. They feel like they are responsible for their children. And in some ways they are. They're responsible for caring for them and feeding them. And on a spiritual level, if you ask me and lots of other people, they'll say, well, the responsibility is to encourage this spiritual being having a human experience to be who they are. But sometimes we fall down or take too much responsibility, and we try to make people be like who we are or who we think they should be, which never works. It never feels good. It's all judgment. It's the opposite of compassion. And P.S., it's not our responsibility anyway. So I could probably go on, but I just want to be clear that when we're talking about take responsibility in spiritual workout world, we're talking about being responsible to our higher selves, being responsible to the being parts of the human beings we are, taking full responsibility for anything that shows up, taking full responsibility for how we respond, taking full responsibility for, in a fun way, choosing and deciding things that we want to be, do, and have as we do in the intention setting process. And it's not about guilt, it's not about shame, and it's not about you did something wrong. So nice deep breath with me if you would. Hold on to the good stuff, let go of the bad stuff. Let's work out some stuff.